Bonjour, David. How are you doing today?
Bonjour. I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for spending some of your precious time here. We're at Sibos 2019, and arguably the biggest, baddest, meanest, I think, Sibos ever. Is it your first Sibos?
It is my first Sibos, and the scale of it is definitely big.
So that's exciting then.
Yeah,
Okay.
very exciting.
So if we step back, just to put some context. So you work at Acuity. And by the way, I used to work at Acuity in another life back in 2003 to 2006.
Excellent.
So I know quite a few things about the organization, which has probably changed dramatically since I left. Could you please give us a quick overview of the business and of course your role for your first 100 days within the organization?
First 100 days. So Acuity essentially covers a number of different areas, principally KYC, compliance and payments. And we offer various tools to banks and corporates to help them in those space. The one that I will talk about, because it's my area, is payments. And in payments particularly, we focus on providing banks and corporates with various tools to help with principally their payments efficiency.
So you've been here 100 days. So can you talk a bit more about your own role within the organization, please?
So my role is I'm EVP of Global Payments. I'm responsible for all the payments products. New into Acuity, as you say, 100 days. And I mean, I think it's been a very interesting journey for me personally. You know, my background is I've come from a bank. I was head of technology innovation for Royal Bank of Scotland, then dived into the startup world. I did a KYC AML startup, and most recently I've done an AI startup. So coming into a corporate like Acuity, you know, we're now probably considerably bigger than we were when you were there. It's been really interesting and a great time to come into it because, you know, we're fortunate. We've been around for a very long time. Banker's Almanac. Indeed, if you go to our stand, you'll see the original one, 1845, sitting there. That we've been around a long time. We have a lot of banking relationships, and we've been in the payment space, you know, since that time. But we're going through a massive transformation in payments, and sort of my experience of coming from maybe the more startup world more recently, and certainly with technology such as AI and blockchain, it's been interesting applying that knowledge into, you know, what is a space in payments that's developing very quickly at the moment.
Your scope is?
My scope is payments products, so globally,
okay.
yeah, so looking at all of those.
So Acuity, as you mentioned, of course, very well, two sides of the business, so risk compliance, real-time payments, and or I guess all the KYC, good KYC stuff, and then the payments, international payments. You mentioned a broad range of products and services. What are you touching, or which kind of services are you offering, from maybe payment routing information to other more complex integrated products? Can you give us a brief overview of the scope of the payment products? So
essentially most of our payments products revolve around reference data, so enabling a bank to understand how best to route a payment. As you said, you know, particularly in the US, we're actually the ABA registrar, so we provide the RTM file.
So many years.
Still, I think that's a very, very long relationship. So that's obviously, you know, core to most banks in the US routing payments. And at the global sense, we provide a number of tools that help banks to understand the relationships such as SSIs, IBAN validation, and, you know, various BIC routing codes, etc. So principally at this stage, what we do is offer that reference data, and we provide that, you know, in the ways you'd expect, really, either via a lookup tool, via an API, or indeed some of our customers take a file to ingest into their master data management systems, so they have that reference data available throughout the bank.
So indeed, I mean, that's fresh in my mind still after so many years because we use already to do that. I mean, the data and probably the scope or the delivery channels and the level of depth of the information must be fundamentally different now, but still pretty much same business, which is interesting. What's your view on next year, on 2020, which is now tomorrow, like in a few months, in terms of the payment industry? Any major challenge to face, and maybe on the back of it, any major launch or new product from Acuity? Could you please share that with us?
I think 2020 is going to be a fascinating year because we're seeing some major initiatives. So, you know, an obvious one that's going to affect all people in the Swift space is that looming adoption of ISO 20022, so that, you know, fundamental change in format. Now, it doesn't come in until 2021, but I think everybody next year will be spending a lot of time understanding what that means and what opportunities and challenges it presents the industry. So I think that's certainly going to be a major theme, and we're talking to a number of our banking partners about how they're addressing that, what they're seeing as the challenges principally at the moment, but I think the opportunities will come after that. So I think that's going to be one thing that's going to dominate. I think also we've got a number of of those macro trends coming through. So we've still got I would say the Libra effect. Libra was a big announcement this year. Obviously, the initially stated plan was it was going to come into fruition next year. I think that there's going to be an interesting industry impact. It's a very significant project they're undertaking, and I think the financial inclusion aspects of it are absolutely critical, not just to the payments industry but society as a whole. So I think that will be an interesting one to see how that plays out, and obviously it presents the whole of the industry, from regulators through to participants, with some interesting questions and challenge. How do you apply our current rule set to something that is similar but not the same and probably doesn't behave in the same way? So I think that will be an interesting one next year. I think the other one that we're seeing is potentially the alternative rails such as Ripple, R3, etc., starting to become or starting to move beyond that sort of proof of concept phase into some more mainstream projects with some established players. So we see all of that going on, and obviously we spend a lot of time out in the industry talking to players, and those are certainly the themes that we're hearing from banks principally, but also some of the corporates.
So on the back of that, and you mentioned your expertise and experience with AI and ML and stuff like that, and blockchain as well. Yeah. Can we expect new, somehow innovative, fresh products or solutions from Acuity within the next, if not 12 months, 24 months?
Absolutely. I mean, what we're looking at is obviously one of the things that Acuity has is a very deep understanding of the payments data. And from your experience, we've been doing this a long time, and we've got a general understanding across the whole of the industry, but also deep understanding in particularly cross-border. And what we're looking to do in the payment space is really translate that deep understanding into tooling. At the moment, we've principally focused on just creating better data, but we see there's a significant opportunity to bring that expertise to life in some tooling. Now, obviously, with my background, I'm very much looking at the AI aspects of that, so that's that automation and insight. But doing that, obviously, within the backdrop of a regulated environment. So particularly the themes we're looking at the moment is how to use things like reinforcement learning, which is obviously a different discipline to, say, machine learning, to enable us to bring that insight, but in a way that the regulator can still understand, and a bank or a corporate can really feel confident in as they move forward. So timeline-wise, we're obviously not committing to anything at the moment, but certainly, from my perspective, that's a major focus for us, and we're out with a number of our banking clients, talking to them about their requirements, and really exploring how they feel about AI and blockchain, and how we can incorporate that into the future product set for Acuity.
Okay, and you're going to play a key role in that, being at the position, at the role you
Absolutely.
are. Absolutely,
and I mean, my remit is really to identify those opportunities and bring product to market to best provide those solutions.
Okay. We're at Sibos for 2019, as we said at the beginning. Any major goals, like announcements from Acuity? Of course, Sibos is great for networking, so
absolutely.
Insight gathering. So what's your key personal
Yeah,
goals?
I mean, I think, from my point of view on the payment space, we're very much looking at, the themes of Sibos around this hyper-connective, and I think there's some really interesting things as we look at what's coming along, and we talk about multi-rail environments, etc., where you're seeing both maybe what we've historically seen recently as things like Ripple being an alternative rail, but we're also seeing that there are providers coming out they're using existing rails but in different ways. And one of the things we're really trying to understand is the great thing about Sibos is you get the whole ecosystem here, how that's playing out. From a bank point of view, how they view that, and from particularly some of the startups that are really exploring this, how they're going about it. One of the things that I'm very interested in at the moment is what that means for banks and corporates as we think about, for example, e-wallets becoming, I was spent last year in Asia, but e-wallets particularly becoming the de facto banking solution, particularly in Asia. How we integrate those into more of the mainstream banking environment. And from our point of view, the data needed to do that. E-wallets behave very differently to bank accounts, and we've got to try and understand how best to incorporate that into the product set. So, that's my main focus from a payments point of view. My colleagues on the compliance side, we've just launched an interesting research paper talking about sanctions and how the sanctions environment has evolved recently, which is a good read, well worth going on the site to have a read of. But certainly on the payments, that's what we're focused on.
Okay, well, thank you. That makes sense. Again, the AML side of things is equally interesting, and Acuity is well versed as well in covering that. So please, every viewer, please have a look as well. So, well, thank you very much for your time, David. Did we cover pretty much everything, or do you had anything else to add to the conversation?
No, I think that covers. I think, as I said, one of the other interesting areas for us is Asia, and just the amount of innovation that's going on from a payments point of view in Asia is fascinating for me, and looking at some of the emerging players. So we're certainly got a big focus on that and trying to understand how we can fit into that ecosystem and support both the banks and the corporates as they better understand how to jump on that innovation train and try and bring new product to market.
So you see yourself and Acuity very much as advisors, as much as technology and data providers?
Absolutely. I think in our position, we obviously spend a lot of time with the large majority of banks in the world and many corporates that have similar size operations. So we get to see a lot of the challenges, but we also see hopefully we bring to it what we see from an opportunity point of view, because I think payments is probably going through its biggest change certainly for the last 20 or 30 years, and I think that's very exciting time to be in the marketplace.
It is. Well, congratulations again for joining Acuity. Thank you very much for your insights in the last 10 minutes, and I hope we'll meet again soon in London, maybe in Singapore or
Absolutely.
in Skopje.
Yeah,
Who knows,
no.
right? Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.